Big weekend in Florida, back-to-back Friday, Saturday games, and we're going to talk about what we should expect and why the Orlando game might be so much fun. Plus, your questions, opening up the mailbag for the final segment on the take foul rule, small ball, and what happened to Luke Kornet, and an extended conversation on that Draymond Green punch. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, Keith John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Here, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. And I'm here for you every day with a free, fresh podcast that exists wherever podcasts exist, including YouTube. So make sure you're subscribed in any one of these forms. It'd be greatly appreciated. And I do enjoy the fact that you make this show your first listen every day. I love it when people yell to me, "Hey, Karalis," at the arena. And I look up and they go, "First listen." That's just one of my favorite things to have happen. By the way, I am John Karalis, former professional basketball player, easy for me to say, and now beat writer covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal, also the author of the book, The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. People have asked about that book. I do have an option for people to buy the book, an autographed, signed copy on my website. I have a few books still laying around. I can order more if people want to go buy them from johnkaralis.com. So I have a few more international people who want to buy the book. The shipping is a lot different than what the price reflects on the website. So if you're shipping internationally, that's not the price. Sorry. That's just how it goes. I don't set those rates. Let's get Tom _ Oh, wait, hold on. We're on the wrong side on the YouTube. There we go. You were John Karalis for 2 seconds. Now tell me, how awesome were those 2 seconds?
It was awful. There was no megaphone. I didn't know what to do. I was stumbling over my introduction. I thought I played 16 years of professional basketball, and I knew that wasn't even right on the other end. I didn't know what was going on.
In my second and a half as Tom Westerholm, I learned to play one note in the guitar.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Does it feel good?
Yeah, I don't know which note it is, but
it was actually 3 notes. It was a D power chord.
Okay.
It's very easy. Yeah.
Very powerful.
In drop D, so you literally don't have to touch a fret. You can just strum that thing.
Yeah. I always wanted to do have the arm out, big windmill. Now, I don't know if that's actually possible because I only see that in like movies, but I just always want to do that.
Yeah, in theory, it's possible. The first band I was ever in, I had this buddy, shout out, I'm sure he doesn't listen, shout out Jose Sanchez. He would take the guitar and he could do the thing for one riff that we played, and he would like put it on his back and he would play the riff and then he would bring it back down. And it was so funny because it was so kind of like a labor, right? Like he really had to lift that thing up and put it behind his back, and then he would play it, and he would bring it back down. It was great. Guitar's great, man.
I saw my ultimate music fantasy play out before my eyes. I always wanted to play piano, and my fantasy is always to have gone into a hotel lobby or something like that where a piano sat just by itself, and I would just and just pick up and just play, and all of a sudden people go, "What? Where is that coming from? Who's playing that?" And have the crowd come around me. I've always wanted to do that. Now, I've never played piano. I don't know how to read music. But when I was playing in Greece, we were on the road, and one of my teammates actually did that. We walked into some lounge on the road in the hotel. We're just chilling out, hanging out, relaxing. And there was a piano sitting there. And I remember thinking to myself, man, that would be cool to do. And then he goes up and Tom, literally exactly how I thought it would go. He picks it up. He starts playing. All the girls come around. They're all super impressed. And I'm like, no, You don't get to live out my dream right in front of me.
Well, the good news is what you know now is that it works. So if you learn piano,
sure.
give it a shot. Give it a shot.
I mean, I don't think chopsticks would impress the people at the Waldorf. Yeah. we'll work on that.
All right.
Celtics are on the road. They're in a hotel in Miami. How about that? I don't think any of these guys. I don't know if any of these guys can play piano. I got to ask them if they.
I've seen Jaylen take pictures at the piano, but I don't.
Yeah, no, Jaylen I think has tried. Yeah, I don't know if he's fronting or what, but yeah. So I don't know. I think maybe Grant, but anyway, they're over there. They're in Miami. They're in a back-to-back Miami Orlando. So let's talk about a little bit about what we expect from this series, especially. I mean, we'll start with Miami, but the back-to-back against Orlando really fascinates me. So I'm not sure kind of what to expect. I think we're all just kind of giddy after the big win, the win that really looked good against the Sixers. Miami's coming off a loss. I don't know if they're not playing tonight. Are they? I didn't see. No, there's 2 games tonight. They're not playing tonight. Yeah. So Miami's coming off a loss. They didn't look great. I expect Miami at home to look better, play better. Some of the guys that didn't play well, like Kyle Lowry, I expect them to play a little bit better. Be very interested to see how the Celtics respond to that opening night win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the interesting thing about the opening night win is that so many of the things that worked in the preseason also worked in that game, which kind of gives you good sense going forward, right? Like,
feel good about that.
I'm interested. Like you said, Lowry was the real sticking point for the Heat. And I think. I mean, I kind of think he's in for a tough night. Like the way the Celtics can play, the way that they can move the ball, and the way they have all these guys who can attack the rim and everything, and the small ball has just been so deadly. I think that's going to be really interesting. The thing that I think will be different is that the Heat are probably a lot better positioned to get back in transition. Like, I don't think there's going to be quite so many just easy, run down the court, breakaway. All right, Jaylen's got his third breakaway dunk of the first half, whatever it might be. I don't think there's going to be quite as much of that. But the Heat, historically, one of the things that the Heat have really struggled with is dealing with the Celtics, in those switches, in those isolations. Like, the Celtics are so good at making the Heat get into those uncomfortable positions. And you throw Malcolm Brogdon into the mix too. That's yet another guy that can do that kind of stuff. And I'm sure it warmed your heart seeing Brogdon continue to cut and just get to the rim against the Sixers. Those things are so much more effective when defenses are forced to freak out about the Jays. So I do think that there's a lot of kind of weak points in Miami's armor that the Celtics can really kind of chip away at.
Yeah, I think the Celtics have a lot of points where they can attack. Tyler Hero started in that last game.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Point. Lowry is just a weak point at this point. And what that does is it puts Bam Adebayo in a rough spot. Like, he's got to clean up a lot of messes. And I don't think Jimmy Butler is going to be out there. I mean, he had an okay game. He got a ton of free throws against Chicago, but I don't think Jimmy Butler's out there giving his A game in October. He's competitive, but he understands that he's not his youngest anymore. And there's a place during the regular season. He has a gear, and in the playoffs, he not only has another, he's like 2 or 3 more gears. Yep. So he paces himself for sure. But it is still an important game. But yeah, I love the fact not just that Brogdon is cutting, but the fact that the Celtics have guys, passers on this team that allow Tatum and Brown to cut more. Yeah, and I mean, this is now just a theory at this point, something that a data point that I'm watching. Are those guys able to cut a lot more this season because the passing and creation exists from multiple people outside of them now, more so than it existed last season? And, against a team like Miami with these weak spots, with Hero, who you can attack, and then somebody's got to help. Is somebody doing the appropriate cutting behind that rotation? That I think is a big deal. And when Tatum and Brown can cut and get 2-3 easy baskets, that's the recipe for 30-point games.
Yep. 100%. I mean, we saw that. We saw that against Philly, right? Like, Tatum had a couple of those Like I think he had that one, like I think it was like a reverse layup. Like, just like it's easy stuff, easy stuff. Because those guys are going to hit the hard ones too. But the easy ones help you rack up the points. The easy ones help make the hard ones feel easier, right? They help you get in that rhythm. Basketball's a vibes game, man. It's just you get yourself a good vibe, you're gonna have good results.
And look, let's not mince words when it comes to professional basketball players. You want your points. You want to score. You're a scorer. You want your points. And
at any level, dude, like if you're playing a men's league game, you score 20 points, you're like, hell yeah. Like,
hell yeah. But it's your job to score. So if you can get out there and pile up 6-8 points just on a couple of cheapies, a breakaway, and a free throw or two, now you're like, oh, now I'm almost halfway to where I want to be. Yeah. I don't have to force some of these shots to get myself into a rhythm. I can take some more in rhythm shots. I can feel out the game a little bit more. So it's just all of this stuff. Just you start to see the pieces come together. So I feel good. I do feel good about how the Miami game will go, just so long as they are mentally present and prepared and not like, oh, look at us, just beat the Sixers. Everybody's loving us again. We're going to cruise through this Florida weekend. I don't expect that, but it's possible.
Of course it's possible. I will say, I think that's, there have been a couple of seasons now where the Celtics have started with a back-to-back, right? And that's when you always you'll see them come out for that first game and everybody's amped up. And then that second game always feels like a letdown. And this season, I think for the Celtics having that opening night game and then having 2 days off before then having a back-to-back, I think that helps a lot, because what that means is that you get that big win on Tuesday, you get to just kind of strut around on the Wednesday, and then on the Thursday it's like, all right. This is a team that took us to 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. We're on the road. This is going to be a big one. It kind of gives you that little bit of you get the same reality check, but it's just that you have an extra day. It's just that it comes on an off day instead of a loss to the I don't know, the Thunder at home or something like that.
All right, there is a second game on this back-to-back, which we'll talk about in just a second here. I am a little concerned about that game. I don't see the odds for that up on betonline.net yet, but once it comes up, we'll get a better sense of what the bettors are thinking. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs, football, and the start of this new basketball season. You can get all of the latest player developments, matchups, podcasts, news, in-depth analysis of every game. It's all right on there. Very easy to find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information. Obviously, live betting, in-game stuff. That's a fun thing for a lot of people. Up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. That includes MLB playoffs, MMA, boxing, golf, and again, obviously the NBA, which is now in the beginning of its schedule. So head on over to betonline.net. You can use your mobile device to learn more at BetOnline, where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. Do you want an easy way to get caught up on the night in the NBA? Then you need to make your second listen after Locked On Celtics Game to Game NBA. Every moment, every big performance, every result, Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with the local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. All of the local experts are at the games or watching the games. They'll give you a minute or so recap from each team's perspective, and it's on the Locked On NBA feed. So make sure you're following Game to Game on that Locked On NBA feed, or on the Odyssey app, or YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. It exists. Celtics after Miami. I'll just pencil in a win for that game against Miami. They head to Orlando, and before the season, I remember putting out there, Orlando on the back-to-back. That's going to be a nice kind of easy way, or easier way we'll get Horford some rest and all of that. And then you look at it and you say, oh boy, they have some real young talent. Paolo Banchero is awesome. Franz Wagner is awesome.
Oh yeah.
They have that duo in 2-3 years has the potential to be one of the top duos in the NBA. I believe in those guys. And Tom, I look at Orlando the same way I look at Detroit, and Orlando just lost to Detroit.
Yeah. I loved that game.
So full of young talent. They both are, if you walk in there sleeping, if you walk in there thinking this is going to be a gimme, if you walk in there thinking, hey, we're the big bad Celtics, we're going to go through the motions and they're going to lay down, you got another thing coming. And it's either going to be a very tough win or you're going to be staring down the barrel of a loss that you shouldn't have had on your schedule. So I think very obviously, the Celtics are the better team here, but you cannot just cruise into this game.
No, it's funny. I think there's going to be a lot of it's going to be a tough year. Like there's going to be a lot of teams that it's just hard
East
to cruise
is so
against.
good. East
it's
is
pretty
so
good, man.
The bad teams minus like Indy and Charlotte, but these teams
totally
are talented.
There's a lot of up and comers that are going to be hungry and fun and young and energetic. And I mean, again, like you were saying, like I don't know how many wins these teams are gonna collect, but like I love that Orlando team. I mean, like it's kind of interesting, right? Like that Orlando team can really look at the Celtics and see a future blueprint for success with two big wings who are super talented and can kind of be your building blocks going forward. I mean, Bankero himself has said like Tatum was one of the guys he looked up to, which is very funny that Jayson Tatum, like who we are all like, we've been covering that guy since he came into the league, that guy now has players who were looking up to him. And, Bankero, obviously another Duke guy. It makes a lot of sense, but I'm excited for that game. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think everything that we've seen from the Celtics so far this season, including the preseason, including that first game, these guys look locked in. They look excited. They look like focused. I don't think the Celtics are going to go 82-0, obviously, but I do think that there's going to be like a lot of. But I think that like I don't think there's going to be many games this season where the Celtics come out like unfocused and not ready and just kind of just kind of taking a team for granted. They seem to have really put that stuff behind them in a really healthy way. So, but that said, like even when you are focused, like this is the NBA and like these teams are good now, right? The Magic they're a pretty good basketball team. The Pistons, pretty good basketball team. Like these teams that used to be kind of pushovers are not pushovers this year. And that's gonna be fun. I'm actually much more excited for that game than I am for the Heat game because like the Heat, I'm just tired of watching them. Like, good.
You know what you're getting. You know what you're getting with the Heat.
Exactly.
You know exactly what you're getting. You get some stupid zone. You're gonna get some like slog. You're gonna get Jimmy Butler's gonna hit some stupid crap. It's you know exactly how that Heat game's gonna go. This game is really like fresh and new.
It's so
this
fresh.
Game is the meme. This is that meme with the guy looking over his shoulder going, whoo. The angry girlfriend, like he's looking at the Orlando game and the girlfriend is like Miami Heat, Boston Celtics rivalry. That's where that's going. I am also excited. And here's the thing about these games against the Orlando types. This is essentially a sort of playoff game for the Magic because the Celtics are coming in. The Celtics are the Eastern Conference champions. The Celtics are a team that's coming in with championship expectations. The Magic are young, hungry, minus Terrence Ross. He's not young, but everybody else is young and hungry. And they want to come in. What a stray. I'm sorry, Terrence Ross. I'm not the guy that should be making old jokes.
that poor guy. Every single year, everybody's like, "Ooh, somebody's going to pick off a contender's going to pick off Terrence Ross." And every single year, the Magic like, nah,
no, we like him.
This guy's
maybe he likes it there. Maybe he's a Disney guy.
It's warm.
It's nice. It's nice. No state income tax over there.
Yeah.
Theme parks, Universal. Maybe he's a Universal guy. Maybe
he's like, making money and getting buckets. Like,
what the hell? What do you want?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a team that measures itself against teams like Boston. And it's an early kind of, hey, we're here. Well, let's see what these big boys have. They're gonna play hard against these guys. The Celtics gonna expect Orlando's absolute best. Now, Orlando doesn't know how to win a game. That's where they and Detroit still suffer. They have talent. They have somewhat star power. They have, it's like a hurricane that hasn't formed yet, but you can see the low pressure. You can see the starting to swirl. You can kind of get it, but it doesn't have that power yet like the Celtics have and the contenders have. But it's there, and they are looking forward to testing themselves against Boston.
This is kind of a tangent, but that was always one of the things that interested me about the way that the Jays came up, right? Was that like they always had stars that they could lean on, and then it always, like they always had like that. Even Kemba, right? They always kind of had that like safety net. Even when they were the best players on the team, right? Because Kemba was not the best player on that team, but like he was still their little safety net that Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens would provide for them. And I always kind of wondered if that that kind of disappointing 2021 season, if that was like, because that was kind of the first year that they were really running the ship, right? Like they were really the guys. There was no more safety net. And I always kind of wondered if that was like almost the growing pains of no longer having that safety net. And then here we are, 2021, 2022, first half of the season, they still need a little bit of that, but then they kind of get it together. That's always kind of been my theory with them is that they never really kind of like learned how to win without that little net below them. And then they figured it out, and now look at them. I mean, they're, like you said, one of the best duos in the NBA. But just to your point about, the Magic trying to prove themselves, I also think to add to that, Banchero, like this is his first shot at Tatum. Like, that's a big deal for him. Like he's gonna want to prove himself. And that's, I don't know. I love young guys, man. These subplots are so much fun. I'm excited for that game.
Yeah, no, I think that's gonna be a fun one. And Banchero is just a guy to watch. I just am very excited. It's one of those kind of, you start to see every next generation like, okay, league is in good hands. You can see these guys coming in. And Wembanyama is coming in soon, and he's going to be part of this generation. These guys are all 1, 2, 3 years apart. It's going to be a fun league. And these are the guys who are taking over kind of on the tail end of Tatum and Brown. This is the weird part of where Tatum and Brown are, because they're young, but they're not quite as young as everybody kind of sees them as. It won't be long. You're going to blink and Jaylen Brown's going to be 30. Yep. You're going to be like, what? When did that happen? And that's where Banchero and Cade Cunningham are going to be how old Tatum and Brown are now. And those guys are going to be the old heads playing for like 2 more contracts, or, like that's going to be wild. So it's exciting. It is exciting. It's fun.
The thing that when you're a parent, the thing that every single person will tell you is like, just you blink and the kid's 14 already, so just enjoy it. And I feel like I'm saying that to like Celtics fans too. Like, it's just, you're going to blink. These guys, they're going to be 32 years old. So like, just enjoy it. These guys are good. So
that's going to hurt my feelings. It really is going to hurt my feelings because I'm coming in. This is for me, my first kind of covering a guy from drafting as covering a guy. I mean, I've seen Paul Pierce, I've seen him come and go, and I've seen guys come and go, but covering a guy from day one and saying like, okay, here's his rookie year. And here's, watching these guys develop and really doing it in an analytical way.
Yep.
That's going to hurt my feelings when, look, they're not that far off. And that discussion someday, Tom, and I don't want to bring this down, but someday when we have this talk of should they blow it up? Should they do the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett? Is this time? That's going to be a hard day. That's going to be the hardest show I ever do. But luckily, it's not that far off.
Time in the future. But
who knows what pot? Yeah, but it'll happen fast. Let's rapid fire our way through some listener questions because we've got a few, and this is an opportunity. I didn't expect us to go 23 minutes on the weekend, but
always as usual, expect us to go long. Always.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I always expect us to spend 4 or 5 minutes at the beginning of the podcast, not actually talking about basketball. So We're gonna try to be quick. We're trying
I
to
got
be
this.
quick.
I got this.
Tom, I'm speaking directly to you, but I'm really talking to myself. But I'm projecting right now. Okay?
Okay.
So stick with me.
Okay.
Ra from Sydney. Looks like the new take foul rule is an added bonus to the Celtics pushing the ball more, and it also hurt teams who don't get back like Philly. Tom, how much did the take rule help the Celtics on opening night?
A lot.
Yeah, I think so too. That's a good point by Ra. I think
Ra,
you got it. Yeah, I think a few 100%. Of those fast breaks would have been stopped by James Harden fouls because he would have just taken them because he's not going to defend enough to foul anybody any other way. So he's just like, but he had to give up. There were a couple of those where he had to give up. So
I mean, the other thing too is like because it's not it's not just like you get out in transition, right? It's not just like that. It's also the fact that like those are advantages, right? Those are big advantages for when Tatum can get back that fast. Like it's not just the fast breaks where you're wide open. It's also the fast breaks where Tatum's going 2-on-2. Do you know how like good Tatum is when he's got that much space? Like 2-on-2 is a ton of space. So yeah, no, it's really going to help them.
This is what fans want to see. This is what I've wanted to see when I've called for this take foul to come in for a million years. Same as Jeff Van Gundy. This is exactly what we want. So, Rod, good call. Yes. Frank G says, do you think we would have taken this small ball approach had Kornet not gotten injured? What do you think the plan is for him going forward? You said, Tom, before the podcast, maybe we should do a mea culpa on Kornet, which, good. You take that and run with it.
No, I just so I don't know about the small ball thing is interesting because it's not the first unit that's been crushing people. It's kind of the second unit that's really been obliterating people, and then the Celtics just kind of mix and match from there and find things that work. So that's kind of the interesting thing to me. I still think there's room for trying some stuff out with Kornet, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like this is working, so why mess with success?
Yeah, I think they would have worked. I bet Kornet would have started the first game had he not gotten hurt, and maybe things would be different. I also think that the Sixers matchup was a bad matchup for him because he wasn't going to guard Embiid. Embiid would just mow right through him. Vonleh at least he's strong and he can get low and at least hold his own a little bit better. Kornet, for all of the things that I think that he can do, is not the strongest center in the world.
No.
And so I think that there might be an opportunity for him to play this weekend. Basically, the bigs are going to be super situational. So don't read too much into game one. Vonleh might get a DNP somewhere along the way here, and Kornet might get 30 minutes. But I do think the injury hurt, but I do think he's going to play, and we'll see. Maybe he can grab some minutes here. Maybe he can make us redeem us is the word I'm looking for. All right. Andrew C. Have you seen this backcourt butt screen before, or is Grant Williams pioneering something new? So what Andrew is talking about is the inbounder, you inbound the ball, the guy's bringing it up, but he's kind of getting hounded. So the big, in this case, Grant Williams, kind of like stops and he like sticks his butt out and kind of just impedes the progress of the defender. I have seen that before, but Grant does have ample backside, let's say, and is probably effective as it. So he's not pioneering something. I have seen it before, though.
You have to be careful with those because it's technically a foul if like basically like you can't set a screen.
It's like a moving screen.
It's you like and you can't kind of set a screen backwards, so it's got to kind of be this like weird game of like, oh, I'm just here. I don't know, like this guy.
Yeah. I just stopped in this guy's way.
I just stopped here. Yeah. So got it. Yeah, but no, this is Grant is like you said. Grant is built for this. So.
Marcel asks, who would take over as in-game head coach if Coach Mazzulla was ejected? I love this question. Who would it be?
Great question. Stoudemire?
See, I'm thinking Ben Sullivan.
Sullivan, maybe? Yeah, I don't know. Good question, Marcel.
That's a good question. I think it would be Ben Sullivan. Well, Ben Sullivan coached the summer league team. So
yeah, but that doesn't always mean. I mean, Scott Morrison.
No, it doesn't. But yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. I'm going to go Ben Sullivan. I'm going to go Ben Sullivan.
I'm going to go Brad Stevens.
You think Brad Stevens is just in the back, just waiting, just pacing?
No,
that would be like.
I think it's the exact opposite. I think Brad Stevens is far away from the coaching bench as far as he could possibly be.
If Brad Stevens were to get called into the coaching, it'd be like the hockey emergency goalie. The guy that's sitting in the stands. Is one of my favorite things in all of sports. Where if you don't know this. And I think ESPN Daily, that podcast, did a fun podcast recently because guys have gotten very recently these opportunities, especially during COVID. You have your goalie in hockey, you have your backup goalie, but then there's a third goalie just sitting in the stands who's just some guy who played hockey at some higher level and gets to come to the game, not allowed to drink, although I might need to have a drink if I was like potentially going to be on the ice. And if both goalies go down, you go in. And here's the thing. You could play on either team. That's the best part. You could be at a Bruins Canadiens game in Boston as the emergency goalie, and the Canadiens, you could be like a diehard Bruins fan, and both Canadiens goalies go down, and you're like, guess what? I'm playing for the enemy right now. And you get to go in.
Take some shots, boys.
That's it. In Boston, that guy would absolutely lay down. Go, whoa, oh my God. Don't know how I let that in. Wow.
It's been a few years since I played this game, man. I don't know what's going on.
All right. So anyway, that's how I would see Brad Stevens in that scenario. Just sitting up in the luxury box, watching the game, and they go, you just all of a sudden get a text or like a FaceTime. Hey, Brad, it's Joe. I just got kicked out. You got to come down here. That'd be fun.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Okay. Final question. And I want to ask this to you as a parent, because this is actually a little serious, but it comes on the heels of the Draymond Green stuff. So Heather asks, if I walked into my workplace and I punched a colleague, 1, I'd be fired. 2, I'd likely be charged with assault. Why is Draymond getting off so lightly for doing the same thing in his workplace? And what sort of message does that send to the young kids looking up to NBA stars? And I don't want to, there's some sort of like, oh, won't you think of the children kind of reaction that's going to happen to this? But it actually is a serious kind of question. The video's out there. Kids are seeing Draymond walk up to Jordan Poole and punch him. Just punch him.
Yeah.
She has a point. No, I can't sit there on press row and get into an argument with Jay King and punch him and expect to be like back on press row the next day. And yes, I picked Jay King purposefully up for that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you picked the one guy that like
everybody wants to punch.
Maybe you could expect to be back on press row the next day.
Would everybody celebrate that and be like, welcome, John, sit in the front row, please?
Christian Magliola might give you a better seat. I don't know. We'll have to ask him. But Heather's got a good question. I mean, I think the thing that's a little concerning too is increasingly one of the things that you notice when you watch youth basketball is that these kids are increasingly like they're good, right? They're watching these games, they're watching how guys are doing things, and they're also watching how guys act. Like they really like look up to these guys. And so, you see a guy complain a certain type of way, and you're going to see a guy complain the exact same way, a week later at the youth level. You see a guy do a 3-point celebration. I mean, how many kids do you think are doing, the Tatum kiss of death?
Absolutely.
They really do kind of see this. And I think, to answer the thing about the workplace, that I think is a little different because, I mean, we cannot sit here and pretend that the NBA is a normal workplace. It is not. It's very different. And it's it's different in so many ways. It's different in the responsibilities that are being performed. It's different in the ways that you have to get yourself ready for work. It's different in the way you are compensated. It's different in the asset that you are to your employer. Like it's completely different in every single way.
You're also the product.
Yes.
You're the product and the employee.
Yes, exactly. And that's something that I mean, that most people can't, like, it's a bizarre thing to be. But in terms of the way of what we see from, I mean, look, like, it's becoming like a real problem that people see, like, not, it's not, like, not a real problem in, like, terms of like society, right? But it's becoming like a real problem. Like, you see, it's so hard to get refs for things because everybody sees NBA players and thinks that they are NBA players, and so that they complain and complain and complain and complain. And it's increasingly getting difficult to staff people because nobody wants to get complained at for 40 minutes. It's not worth that for $15 or whatever you're making for that game. It's like there's like, and I think that when you talk about like the punch, that is a problem. It's a problem for kids who, they just imitate what they see. They look up to these guys. I will say the thing about Draymond is I'm not sure how many people actually look up to Draymond Green. Like, I think Draymond is kind of his own thing. Like, if it had been like,
sure,
he's not like, I don't think, when I think of like cool NBA players who everybody's kind of looking up to, I don't think Draymond Green. However, I get it. But that's not, like, that doesn't matter that much. Like, it's still, a situation where it was, it's very easy to normalize that kind of thing. It's to make it just kind of like, oh, it just happens in NBA practices. And you hear NBA players, right? Say, like, former NBA players, current NBA players who talk about that the biggest issue is that the punch got out, right? That the video got out. That's the big issue.
Yeah,
not that the punch happened, but that the video.
I hated that.
I mean, look, like, what you're telling kids then is that this is normal. This happens in every practice. That's not the message that you want to be sent. So no, I'm with you. Like, I mean, I don't want to sit here and be like, well, like the children, like, and like, pitch like a hissy fit or anything. But I think Heather's right. Like, I think it's not good. And I think that it could have ramifications just based on everything that you see in youth sports. That's like, they look up to these guys.
Yeah. I mean, look, I can tell you that stuff happens. This stuff does happen a lot. Tempers flare. I have had an incident myself where I had a teammate, hand on the throat, punch cocked, and I didn't throw the punch, mostly because I didn't want to break my hand because I would have missed games. That I wanted to punch that dude so bad. And me getting hurt is what stopped it. Not, what am I going to do to him? That's how bad tempers flare. So yes, do these things happen in practices? Do these things crop up on teams? Absolutely, because you can't control who your teammates are, and you're not going to love all your teammates, and you never know who's having a bad night, whatever. There are tons of things that lead to these moments. Should it get to that point? No, you should never actually get to the point where you're punching somebody. But we're also in a field where these types of emotions are cultivated. These emotions are cultivated on the floor. These types of emotions are celebrated on the floor. These types of emotions, if guys don't show these types of emotions, they're publicly called soft. They're publicly perceived as soft. They're publicly perceived as something that's negative. So the same type of emotions that everybody wants in their players, that fiery yelling to the crowd after the block shot like Tatum did, all of those fiery things that people want, that's also the same side or a different side of the same coin that leads to this other thing. So when guys say this happens every practice, this happens all the time, it sounds dismissive. They're saying it the wrong way. The right way, I think, to say it is, it's a delicate balance between taking that fire and that emotion and channeling it out towards a game where you're using it positively and having it get away from you. It's nuclear energy. It's volatile. And sometimes it escapes its container and it explodes. And there's accidentally, you have this thing. When it happens, when something like that happens, you have to pay the price. There has to be a consequence. And you have to be good at somehow keeping that in the container. It goes to Marcus Smart's quote when he got into the thing with Joel Embiid. I could have cracked his head open, but now I'm too mature for that. Like, that's what this is. Yeah. He could have gone to Joel Embiid and thrown a punch and maybe connected with his jaw and dropped Joel Embiid, and people would have been like, "Oh my God!" But he didn't. So there is a consequence that has to be felt, and there is a public perception that needs to be addressed when it comes to Draymond and any of these things, and that's also why people get pissed off about, well, this got out. We want to handle this in-house because we'll deal with it our own way. We don't need everybody to see the ugliness. We'll handle it ourselves, because when it gets out, when you shine that light on it, it takes on the perception of it is different. And so just like everything in life, it's not black and white. Heather has a great point. And kids, unfortunately, this is your opportunity for Heather, for everybody, to say, okay, well, this is not how you handle things. And it's parents got a parent. And it's not on the Golden State Warriors or any NBA team to parent your kid. And this is not directly to you, Heather. I'm not saying this to you. What I'm saying is in general. I'm saying it to Tom. I'm telling Tom Westerholm. It's not on the team to parent the kid. If the way you want to raise your child is to say this is wrong, then you take that and you say, hey, look, what Draymond did is actually wrong. And what the way the Warriors are handling it is actually wrong. And this is how we handle it. This is how we deal with it. And I look at all this stuff as teachable moments for, if you're looking at it for kids who look up to these guys, it's up to the parent to say, because I'll end with this. As much as, let's just give Draymond the role model. Let's just say that Draymond's a role model. Jayson Tatum, all of these guys, however much these guys are role models, however much these kids wear these guys' jerseys and want their autographs and have their posters on the walls, there is no greater role model to any of these kids than their parents. Your parents, they look to you. The kids look to you, the parents, more than they look to these athletes, no matter how obsessed with the athletes that they are. The kids look to the parents first. That's where they take their cues. And so it's up to you to tell them what's right and wrong. That's it.
Yep. I would agree with all that. Now, the only thing I would add to it is just like, it's kind of, and I think one of the things that you would tell your kid, right, is that like presumably you are not raising an NBA player. I'm sorry to break that to anybody who might feel differently, but presumably you are not raising an NBA
Jayson
player.
Tatum.
Yeah, not talking to Jayson Tatum here. He's probably raising an NBA player. But like,
sorry,
presumably you aren't. And assuming that you aren't, the other thing you can tell your kid is like, look, these guys are the product, and you are not. You are a student athlete. You are somebody who, like, if your team loses you, like, it's not a multi-million-dollar loss. So if you go out there and you punch a teammate and you get kicked off the team, you're probably just off the team. Like, it's not the same thing. You are not the same thing. And I mean, you shouldn't look at sports the same way that these guys do, because it's different for you than it's going to be for them. So anyway, that would be my unsolicited.
No, it's solicited.
I coach a U7 soccer team, so I know what I'm talking about here.
Where your son just scored a game-winning goal. Yeah.
Let's go.
He's got that fire. He's got that fire in his belly.
No, because he finally figured out that he's supposed to track the ball for the whole game.
No, Tom, it's because because he wanted it more, Tom. Because he wanted it more, Tom.
No, I can't even put that on him, man. It was just such a cute moment because he just looked at me like, holy cow, I did it. And I was like, yeah, you did. That was awesome. It was so, oh, man.
Was that his first ever goal?
It was. It was his first ever goal. It was one of the,
so
I'm
Tom,
not like in a completely earnest moment. It was one of the most wonderful moments of my life. It was beautiful.
I'm sure it was. But see, now it's out there, Tom, that we don't know what Rafi's going to be. We don't know. We've seen him on the podcast. Cute kid. Kid's got got the world by the balls already. He's a good kid. He's a smart kid. I've played dinosaurs with him. I've purposely led him to smack his head directly into a table. Felt bad about that.
I'm going to tell you, it's not the first table he smacked his head on.
But hey, there's a universe. There's a timeline where Rafi becomes a soccer star. And journalist in me, the guy who's writing the feature, says, hey, the first goal you ever scored, what was that? And he'll be like, you know what? I don't remember it, but my dad told me it was the under-7 league, and my first goal was a game winner. And it's like, boom,
Yeah,
that's the story.
Good.
It's right good. There.
It's pretty
You're
good.
a writer, I'm a writer. We know that it's right there. The premise is there.
It's right there for him.
Which just means
the world is his feature story.
Yeah. Which now just means, Tom, you have to force that kid, cram soccer down his throat despite what he wants, and just turn him into an obsessed soccer star. Who cares how much therapy it matters? The story is good.
The money's good.
The money's good. The money is a bonus.
Yeah. He could pay for his therapy.
This is a Friday show for sure. All right. And we've gone way long. There was a second there where we were like, yeah, I'm right at that 30 minutes. And then we started talking about Draymond and was like, there it goes. So, All right, Tom, appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
As always, Tom_NBA. I'm John _Karalis. This is Locked. I was going to work underscore in there, but it's not. It's Locked On Celtics. Hope you're still with us. The 2 or 3 of you are still with us. Maybe you want to subscribe to the show. Thanks so much for doing that. Big weekend this weekend. 2 games in Florida. I'll throw some post-game pods out there. Why not? I'll throw a little brief post-game something or other so you guys can just have something on the weekends to enjoy. And then big, full podcast all next week. It's a Monday through Friday podcast with a couple extra bonuses here and there throughout the season to make sure you are fully covered as a Celtics fan. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, watch the show on YouTube and share the podcast with your friends. They will love you for it if you tell them that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.